Very good.
Want me to start it off?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Yep.
So this evening, you have your agenda. We are going to start. If everyone in the room did not sign in, please make sure that you do sign. A guest as well. You have name tags, and there's some other information that is sitting on the back table. Make sure you have. We're also going to start then with introductions. And then we'll go into the rest of our agenda. So after our introductions, we're going to review our purpose and guidelines. It's our first meeting of the year. We have some new individuals who will be completing the second year of the two-year term. We'll then vote on positions. We do that each year based on our guidelines. We'll review current parent notification percentages, and Chris is actually on a committee with the state. We have several of our content supervisors on committee, so she's going to share out a little bit of information on that. We'll then also look at the video that we had talked about last year, and we're going to share this year. My thought is, and this could be up to the committee, but my thought is to be consistent as we look at curriculum council and other committees, that we look at items at this meeting and then we wait and we actually vote at the next meeting. That'll give you time to process, give you a little bit more time if you want to see things, and then so that we don't have to vote right away, so that you have time to actually look at it and ensure that you're voting as an informed individual. And then we'll discuss future topics. So why don't we start with introductions. I'm Steve Wernick, Director of Curriculum and Instruction, and I guess I'll go this way.
Bill Vander, Supervisor of Phys Ed and Health.
Chris Tobias, Assistant Supervisor of Health Education.
Lisa Rock, Assistant Director of Nursing at the Health Department.
Erin Sykes, Member at Large. Vera Peeler, Floater Nurse for Copan CCPS.
Kelly Guest, and I have 3 kids at Manchester Valley High School. I think I'm a member at large now.
Blackbird Elementary School parent.
Kim Ellis, I've got a student at Hampstead Elementary, Shiloh Middle, and Manchester Valley.
Caitlin Edmondson, I have 2 at Hampstead Elementary.
Kimberly Evans, I have 2 at Shiloh and 1 at Manchester Valley.
Kara Steeler, I have 1 at Liberty, 1 at Sykesville, and 1 at Lenox. Allison Guerra, I have 1 at East Middle and 1 at William Winchester.
I'm Lauren Everly, and I have 2 at Lincoln Springs.
I'm Tara Schoberg, and I have 4 kids. 2 are at Westminster High School right now.
Al Grassley, 1 kid at Century, 2nd year of the at-large.
Kelly Hurst, high school teacher, Wintersville High School.
Christine Kolb, and I have 4 children. 3 are at Monument Elementary School.
Amy Guilford, all 4 of ours are now graduated from CCPS, and I am the sexual risk avoidance specialist.
I'm Shannon Hinkhouse. I have 3 kids. 2 are graduated from Carroll County Schools, and 1 is a senior at Huntersville.
I'm Brian Thompson. I've got 4 kids, 1 in Westminster, 1 in Shiloh, and 2 at Sadie Mount.
Norman, I've got 5 kids, everywhere. Most recently at
And I'm Amanda Jaskowski. I have 2 kids at Freedom Elementary and then pre-K.
So thank you, everyone, and thanks for individuals who may be new to this committee this year. A couple of things I want to just point out again. Any individual who's not appointed by the Board of Ed to represent the Family Life Advisory Committee should not be seated at the table. Of course, we have chairs in the back. Committee members, please be mindful that the Family Life Advisory Committee is a Board of Education appointed committee and open to the public. Since this is an open meeting, individual recordings are permissible. And so our meetings may be recorded by individuals. They are not recorded by CCPS, so they are not the official version, but they may be recorded. This is different from what I had shared at our April meeting last year. And then as I shared, as I shared, this is it was a telemarketer. As I shared in the second, she has conferences tonight at Elmer Wells, so that's where she's at, parent conferences. This is the 2nd year of a 2-year term for the committee, and an intent form will be sent out to all families in the summer for interest, so that our Board of Education can appoint new members next year for another 2-year term. So we run 2-year terms with this committee, and so next year in the summer we'll be appointing new, send an interest form and the board will appoint new members, so I just wanted to share that. So I want to draw your attention then to just our committee guidelines. Everyone should have a copy. They were sitting on the back table. And I just want to review our purpose and a couple other tidbits of information in here. So of course our purpose is really that the Code of Maryland Regulations, which is COMAR, requires that each school system provide a comprehensive family life and HIV prevention education to students in schools as part of the comprehensive health education. The regulations also require each local system to establish a joint committee of educators and representatives of the committee for the purpose of reviewing and approving instructional materials. Again, we review instructional materials. We do not review lessons. Lessons are at the discretion of the school system and the teachers. They have the autonomy based on our curriculum to teach. The second paragraph goes into a little bit more about our Family Life Advisory Committee, and it's really to ensure that members of the community are consulted about the Carroll County Public Schools Family Life education program. This process is really to ensure that we use up-to-date, scientific, inclusive, and content-accurate, age-appropriate curricula and materials, which should be available for our students in classroom instruction. Going down, and I'm not going to read everything, but I want to point out a couple things. So I wanted to point out that the system-wide Citizen Advisory Committee, this committee really serves as the primary vehicle for the community for input at this level for our family life curriculum. Responsibilities, I'm not going to really get into. There is a lot of information with responsibilities and membership. Everyone here can read that on their own. But I do want to point out to number 11 on the back page, which would technically be, I guess, page 2. Members of the Family Life Advisory Committee are not to communicate publicly on behalf of the committee. Remember, each of us are individuals as either parents, community members, or employees, and we do not represent the entire committee. The committee votes, and that is what's the resounding when the final vote is taken on anything. That is what should be made public. You should not represent yourself as the entire committee. There's some information about officers, and we'll get into voting on our positions this year because it's a new year. There's also information about the duties of officer. And before we vote, I want to also share that officers may not communicate publicly on behalf of the committee without the written permission. Without the permission of members of the committee, superintendent, and the Board of Education, because that is ultimately who we serve. We serve the Board of Education, we serve the superintendent who is under the Board of Education, and we are all a member. It goes into, again, the duties of the chairperson, which we'll be voting on tonight, the vice chairperson, and the secretary. And then it talks a little bit about meetings. We meet 4 times a year. We try to follow Robert's Rule of Order to the best of our ability. We expect that everyone makes these meetings, and we need a quorum to vote. So that's what our guidelines are. Again, you have a copy for this year. And then the other piece of paper that I just wanted to draw your attention to before we actually vote on positions is our Family Life Advisory Committee meeting norms. This is kind of what we looked at last year. They have not changed. And so I want to share them. You may be familiar, but for new members, please be prompt at each meeting to respect everyone's time. We start promptly at 5. We end around 6:30. Monitor sidebar conversations and distractions so that we're all on the same page, listening to the same information, and respecting each other as we speak. Be active participants and listen. Allow opportunities for all to share. Be professional and respectful when giving and receiving ideas. And then, when appropriate, remain confidential. There may be times that they're talking about certain things, and we may need to remain, as confidential as possible, when speaking. What we try not to do is bring specific names of students in, specific names of teachers, that kind of stuff. That should all be, confidential if there's, questions or thoughts within our meetings. Any questions about the information I share? Guidelines, norms, statements?
I have a question.
Yes.
One of the qualifications of the people on the committee, it says you're supposed to have 1 high school student who represents Carroll County?
We do have a high school student, yes, Logan.
Oh, okay.
Yes, he's not here tonight, but we gave him all the information. So he may be playing sports, I'm not sure.
Okay.
But he is on ours. He did attend actually last April. So he did attend our last meeting, but he's not here present tonight.
I
Okay.
specifically sent him the email myself.
All right, so everything goes out to him specific from us.
Okay then.
Other
Can
questions?
I ask a question
Yes.
about the terms? It doesn't say anywhere in here that the entire board is replaced every 2 years, and I just wondered if there was, is there a reason that instead of having kind of half and half so that there's some continuity,
Mhm.
that the entire board is replaced every 2 years?
It has always been that every 2 years, because it's a 2-year term, you can only
Sure.
serve 2 years.
Right.
That the entire, committee has been
Yeah.
voted in.
I
so.
just wonder about the potential for staggering it, just
Correct.
to
Yeah,
maintain
that's a
some-
good point. They are not my rules, they were actually, voted in, with the Board of Ed, but that's a great question, and I can, seek feedback from that.
Thank you.
Can I say something? On number 7, it says, for a 2-year term and eligible for reappointment for 2 additional terms.
Correct.
So, you could be appointed for 6 times.
Yeah,
So,
roughly 6 years.
it's not, you're not getting rid of everybody if you don't have to.
Correct. You're absolutely right.
Okay.
Yep, that is true. But it's not that we would maintain, like, there are some committees where half of them stay and then you re-elect or you appoint the other half, and so you have a staggering every year. Because we don't know who's gonna be it. The Board of Ed, ultimately appoints, the individuals on this committee. So it could be, it could be an entire new committee, or it could be that there are some. I believe that there were some that were on the previous committee that may be here for this committee, so absolutely.
Okay.
Yep, but you are right, you can, it's up to 6-year, 3 terms.
Sure, fine.
Other questions?
What's the
Alderman?
quorum, what's the number of the quorum for this committee? How many we need here to,
We need more than half,
what's that number?
so.
31.
Okay, see.
About 60.
So we have that?
Well, it depends if we're voting tonight, we may not be voting, tonight on any,
Voting for a chair, right?
oh, you will be voting for it.
Yeah.
So I'm just, yeah, it's,
17, we got 18,
And you have 32 people, right?
17.
18,
I think we're good.
because, we're the only
Yeah.
3 that aren't voting members.
Correct.
So at this point, I'm actually going to turn it over to, actually, I guess we'll go to the positions now.
Yeah, let's say you keep going, we go to the
You're
position.
okay, okay.
And the chair.
Exactly, so
Yep.
our next point on our agenda is to vote on positions. We currently have a chair, but I would like to ask, is anybody interested in either nominating themselves or others for the chair for this committee?
I have nominated Sharon Hinkes for chair. I second.
Well, we're not seconding yet, we're looking for our, we got to vote. Anybody else want to nominate themselves or someone else for chair? Okay, with that being said, we will then, since there's only one individual, we'll take the vote.
Does she have to accept?
No, she doesn't have to accept what we have. We're gonna vote to see if.
Do I vote now?
Exactly, yeah.
yes, you vote for yourself.
So we'll see how the votes, and then we'll ask if she is. All in favor of Ms. Hinkhouse, chairing our committee? Raise your hand. Hold your hands up. You count.
I have 16.
Okay. Those opposed? 2. And those abstaining? 2. 16-2. Okay, so at this point, do you accept the nomination?
I will.
Okay. So Ms. Hickhouse will be our chair. We now need to elect a vice chair. So would anybody like to nominate themselves or another individual on the committee as vice chair.
I would like to say that, it's been my privilege to do it for the last 3 years, and I would like to nominate Caitlin Edmondson to be vice chair.
Anybody else? Okay, with that being said, if there's no one else that would like to nominate themselves or another, I call for the vote. Those in favor of Caitlin Edmondson being the vice chair, raise your hand. Okay, so 19. Those against? Abstaining from the vote? And then we need to call for anybody interested in being the recording secretary that would actually be taking the notes and then presenting it to us, and then we would make sure that the chair receives it to send it out prior to the meeting so that then we can vote on it.
I'd like to nominate myself.
Nominate Colette Mormon.
Anyone else? Okay, we will go with the vote first for Dr. Jakowski. All in favor for Dr. Jakowski, raise your hand. Opposed? And then abstaining? For, could you turn it around?
Oh.
Everyone can see.
I can read it.
Yes, sure. This is Mormon, 4. Opposed? 1. Abstained? Okay, and so for the recording secretary will be this year, Mrs. Mormon. So again, all our notes will have to be taken, and then provide notes, look at them, make sure, and then we'll send them to
Directly to all 3 of you?
yeah, usually it's all 3 of us. Yeah, exactly. And then that way, and then we can get over to Mrs. Hinkhouse. So I'm now going to actually turn it over to Mrs. Hinkhouse, who will then share the rest of the meeting.
Okay, well, the next thing on the agenda is to review the current parent notification percentages. I'm not sure what that means by parent notification. I guess that's the percentage that we've received responses from.
Correct, so
and
it's a
then hopefully what
notification,
the choices
exactly,
are.
because they have multiple choices, so the parent notifies us of their choice.
Okay.
And so, we started, back in August, the information went out, by the recommendation of the committee last year. We started it early. We actually started it as a separate notification from the other, parent notifications or permissions that went out. I actually think it was more beneficial that it was separate, and it provided parents a little bit more time to ask questions, to contact us, to review materials. Some schools also were able to have some, family nights, parent nights at their back to school meeting, as well as before school started, as well as during school. So our current numbers are, right now, The 37% of our students, parents opted in for the CCPS Family Life. And that's going in order of what was listed on the notification. The MSDE Family Life, we're at 36% right now. The opt-out of both is at 6% as a total, and we're still waiting on 22% of responses. Again, with that percentage is actually lower than we were last year. We were actually in the 30s at our first meeting. And so, but what we have heard is from some of the parents, as they're getting the notifications from their schools, is we did not respond because as it says in Comar, that if we don't respond, students automatically will have the MSDE version, and that's why we're not responding. We're opting our option out not to respond, and they will go directly into the MSDE version. But we will still make our 3 contacts unless we specifically hear that from the parent, which we have a couple parents state that. And so we will continue, at this point, the teachers will make 3 contacts. That would usually be either a phone call, it could be an email, it could be a robocall from the school, it may be a paper copy, as well as during parent conferences that are happening. If they're not completed, then they may parent may be contacted at those conferences. Yes?
I have a question. My husband is the one that gets the notification through his email. I get all the other CCPS emails besides the laptop, the health curriculum, and I think one other survey. So, I mean, it's no problem. I now know to go into his email and get it, but I've heard from other parents that they couldn't find it, and then they found it was in somebody else's email, so.
Okay, as through text services, that's automatic. The first person that is named as the guardian of the student gets all official notification. So when you register, that the first email is what you're told, it gets all official notification, because you can't send it out to 2 different individuals, because you may get 2 conflicting information. So the person that's guardian 1, all official information goes, and then you can opt into other communication like CCPS general communication or school messenger communication.
I mean, it would be nice if like one parent responded and then it was done, to where like you send it to both. I know it's probably impossible. Send it to both, and then whatever parent responds first, you can't go back and edit it.
The issue is that not everyone has both legal guardians within the names. So the first parent, if you have 2 legal guardians, you will have both listed, but it's always the legal guardian, and then it could be someone else in the household that's not the legal guardian that is also listed as a guardian, but they're not the legal, and that's why it always goes to the first person. So the first person's always asked when you're filling out the registration, are you the legal guardian?
Is there a way to get that out to people? Because I've had several people reach out to me.
You can contact the school.
Okay.
That's
Just
how,
tell them to
yeah, the change, and that you would like that information changed. That is not like any information, like
I'm
all.
just saying for future, for other parents. I know.
Right,
now, but
all permissions, that's how it goes. So anything that's official through the school system, that other guardian will not receive. So they're not receiving all official information. That's just not family life. That's not something that we created or that we're able to change. That is the way that it's structured within the school system.
Is that the white card that comes home in the beginning where you have to check and put the bus number and all that? So look at that paper and
Well,
make sure.
it's actually, well, yes, but it was also, you're right, correct, because it lists guardian 1 and guardian 2, absolutely. And it's usually when you go to register a lot of times, because parents will say, well.
But every year they send it home.
Correct, and you're able to make the changes on that, and that's why it's sent home. But when I've had parents call me when I was a principal and say, well, I'm not getting this and that, and I say, well, when you registered your child, that's who you selected, and things change, but sometimes people don't realize that they have to call the school. We're legally not able to make that change. You have to as a parent, because if we make it and that's not the legal guardian and we change 1 to 2, then that's our fault. So it has to come through the parent to the school directly. Great question though.
Does this go out to all parents at the same time, or only if your child is enrolled in health at that time?
No, it goes out if your child is enrolled in health anytime during the school year, and it's on their schedule. Elementary, it went out to every student. Middle school, it goes out to every student as well, because they're on health, but only health 1 and health 2 who's enrolled. If you change your course, and there are some students who will change you know, that their schedule has to change or whatever, they will then receive it as a paper copy, that their schedule changed and they will get a paper copy. But it does go out to every single parent, multiple times. It went out, I believe, for 6 weeks. Another great question. Anything else?
So is that the overall percentage breakdown? Do you have it listed by elementary, middle, and high school?
I do.
Or that's
I do.
everybody?
No, so I went everyone, elementary, if you are looking at the family life, it's 39% for CCPS, middle school's 36, high school's 31, with that overall was 37. MSDE for, elementary is 33%, middle school's 39, and high school's 39, which gives you an overall of 36%. Opting out of both, elementary is 7%, middle and high school are both 3%. That gives you a 6%. And then no responses, elementary is 21% right now, middle school is 22%, high school's 27%, and it gives you a 22% because there's more elementary students. So when you're looking at it, it's not like you just divide it evenly. It actually looks at the number of students. So there's 12,000 students in elementary, 6,000 is in the middle, 4,000 roughly in high school. So it looks at number of students, not it just doesn't take the actual percentage if you divide it by 3.
How many did you say were in middle school?
Middle school for no response? Is
No, just total middle school.
20, how many students? 3,700 roughly. Oh, I'm sorry, did you say middle school or high school?
Middle school.
Middle school, I'm sorry, 5,900 and change, almost 5,950, close to that.
And you mentioned, how did the no responses compare to last year?
We were at 30, I thought it was 32 when last I looked.
Okay, so it's actually improved.
Yes, it really has improved. And what I truly think what has helped is us sending it out earlier and sending it out separate. Because I think what has happened is sometimes that parent permission form that went out later in August with all the information, that wasn't due until I think October or something. So I think this has given us a better number and people actually responded earlier, just because it was separate.
Yeah, that's good.
And then I did make the adjustment, since we're talking about percentages in family life, that Chris was on a committee, and so she is able to give just an update on the health committee that you're on with the state.
So the state committee is a state validation committee, so the state is asking many content areas to take a look at their frameworks and figure out whether they align, whether there need to be minor changes, major changes, and we're talking about the entire framework, not just the piece that you all have seen. So in health education, we have, I believe it's like a 60-some page document that has all of our content areas. So in health education, we also teach skills. The content concepts are really those indicators that you were looking at in family life, but we have them in other areas too. So we have them in healthy eating, we have them in safety and violence prevention, substance use prevention, mental and emotional health. And then we also have analyzing influences, accessing valid information, interpersonal communication, decision-making, goal setting, self-management, and advocacy. So as we take a look at this, we met on September 16th, and they reviewed the process that we will have to go through as we look through the entire framework. And then we compare it to the National Health Education Standards, which were just recently updated. We do reflect that because of the health skills, and that's what the National Health Education Standards are based on, are those health skills. And this process for us is going to take 12 to 15 months to take a look at these. We'll be meeting monthly. I believe for our committee, we will probably have 2 face-to-face meetings, others will be virtual. And this past meeting, we looked at the COMAR laws. Health education is unique in the fact that we have a lot of laws that impact what we have to teach. One example is hands-only CPR. That's Brianna's law that was put in and passed, that all students will receive instruction in health education on CPR and life-saving skills. So we have several laws in health education like that. So first off, we have to look and make sure that our framework across all areas addresses those COMAR standards. We also, like I said, have to look at those national standards, and then we have to look at regulations and make sure that what we're teaching is what the law says that we should be teaching and our national standards. This past meeting, we reviewed data from the Youth Risk Behavior Survey. That's a survey that's given every 2 years to students, and it asks them questions on risky behaviors, and it's also asking them questions on protective factors. So then they analyze this data, and that data is used to drive a lot of programs and agencies and a lot of behaviors that we would like to see youth making decisions that are healthy decisions, if that makes sense. So we reviewed some of that data. We looked at some health profiles from the Maryland Department of Health. And so we analyzed that data, and then we talked about resources that we think we might need moving forward as we're talking about the framework. So it was basically them taking a needs assessment of what we thought we would need to then validate this curriculum. And then we were given a lot of homework that we have to do. So I have to look at those national health education standards, and they gave us a book about this thick that I need to read before our next meeting. So that was a piece of that too. I ended up getting a lot of homework, which I think is important because we want to make sure that these skills that we're teaching our students help them be a well person for the rest of their lives. And that's really what our goal is in health education, is to help students live a well life for a lifetime.
Can I ask about the national standards? How does that play into what we teach here in Maryland? Because I wonder if all of the 50 states are, you know, I'm not really sure. I believe that all the states are adhering to the same national standards. Is that the case, or is Maryland have some flexibility in what they, you know, cannot incorporate into their curriculum?
I believe there's some flexibility there with some of the national standards, but our national standards are skills-based. So when you're looking at those skills-based, we're taking a look at the influences, like what influences us. So in social media, how does the media play an influence in our lives? So the national standards are very skill-based, if that makes sense. Not just memorizing facts and chalk and talk and things like that, but actually performing and doing. When you're looking at data, how do I know this is reliable data? What do I need to do to make sure that I pulled resources that are valid? So those are all standards that we're working through with our students in the different areas. And then we use those concepts, those indicators, to help us teach those skills. So if we're teaching the skill of CPR, okay, that is a skill that's kind of easy for us to understand. So you go through different steps within that skill.
Can you give me an example related to what we're doing in our framework? Because I'm having a hard time picturing what that means, skills. Like
Well, with ours, we might be doing when we're looking at contraception, okay? And we might be looking at contraception and how effective those different methods are. Well, what are we basing that decision on? You know, what was the research that went into that? What are those things that we pull from? When I pull in my curriculum writers, and Kelly can attest to this too, that we try to look for those valid resources so we can model that through our students. I'm not just pulling information out of the blue to talk to them about a condom, okay? I'm pulling information that is based on some different reliable sources that we've gotten. So that is just one that would be accessing valid information. When we're teaching them about their human body, you know, what resources are we pulling? Is that factual? A lot of what we also teach too is those protective factors. So when we're talking about body safety, you know, who are those reliable sources? And that is their trusted adults. Well, that's an evidence-based thing. We know having a trusted adult is a protective factor for students. So those are how we're weaving in skills. Kelly, do you have anything else?
I'm just thinking of like with some of the stuff that we have our guest speakers with the violence prevention and sexual assault stuff. You know, like the scenarios go into the decision-making model. And decide is one of the top, the 5th one out of the 8 that we do with the standards, skills. So like decision-making is expected to be a multi-step process that we teach, and it doesn't matter what the scenario is. In this case, it would be something your plans family life.
Can I ask, so the, committee that you're on, is the intention that they are reviewing everyone's curriculum and then
No,
providing
not everybody.
guidelines, or like how?
Just health education. So there's, I believe it's either 12 or 14 of us that are just looking at the current framework and trying to figure out, okay, does it have minor changes, that would be like grammar changes that need to be done, or a lot of times they'll put the number of the indicator first, but these numbers in this book appear last. Does that need to be switched? Like, that's a minor change. Or there's some major things that need to be changed. Do we need to bring the skills forefront and some of the concepts back a little bit? Because we are very content heavy in health education too. So it's just really analyzing this framework and is it meeting the needs that we have?
And so then those recommendations would come to
They will go to the
committee,
state.
committee? Okay.
No, they will go to the state.
I see, okay, I was just trying to figure out.
Yeah.
This is at the state
Chain of
level, so-
communication,
This is
gotcha.
the state level.
Okay.
Can I ask one more question?
Mhm.
Is this something that you do every year, or is this something that
No, I
gets?
think it's about every 8 years,
Yeah,
I
8 to
believe.
10 years.
Okay, and then are the meetings that that committee have televised, I mean?
You can
recorded,
find
or-
out minutes and things like that
Okay.
on the website for MSDE.
Okay, but
There'll
no,
be
you
a
can't
drop
watch.
down, no, they're not public,
Okay.
but they do have to post pretty much, minutes and things that we discussed.
These
on
meetings are not
MSDE.
ran by us, this is actually state committee. So right now, there are multiple, so you have multiple contents. You're talking language arts, social studies, early learning, PE, music, and then within there, they have certain years they're up for review. And so this year, I know that they're doing health, I know that they're doing PE, I believe social studies is for review, and what they do is they then ask each district within Maryland, is there any supervisors or curriculum experts that want to sit on those committees? And so it's actually an application process. It's not like you're selected just because you want to be on the committee. There's an application process. They review the application. They actually have to give recommendations. So it's a pretty complicated or intricate process. And then they actually review and then we'll give individuals, yes, you're on the committee, no, you're not. We've been fortunate that we do have a good representation across many of the review committees at the state with our supervisors. And so, but like I said, there may be times when we don't have a supervisor from our county. So it's not that every county is represented. There might be, only 6 counties. But that's all at the state level. So we're basically given the information of would you like to apply to be on the committee? And then they give parameters. It might have to be a supervisor, it might have to be a teacher, or so on
And there
so
are
forth.
parents on the committee, there are community agencies on the committee too. The Maryland Department of Health has 2 representatives on that committee.
And the criteria is all based on MSDE deciding like how many people and who's gonna be on that application, all that stuff.
And the process isn't, it's up to an 18-month process, so it's not like you're gonna decide today. And then I believe the process, and don't quote me, but normally what the process is, if they had changed any of the standards at the state level, it goes to the state board, very similar to how our process works. It goes to the state board, it's up for a presentation, at that point it goes out for review. I'm not sure how many days it is. I believe ours is 30, theirs maybe 30 or 60, I'm not exactly sure. But it goes out for comment, because it goes across the state for comment. And then it comes back to the board for a review again and then vote at the state level. And then at that point, it comes down to our curriculum department, our actually assistant superintendent, to then, provide us how it's should be implemented, or what is the framework to implement.
Do you think you could provide us, maybe not today, but later, like some of the sources that you're talking about? Like I know you had mentioned NIH for this curriculum.
That should come from the state. It's not our committee, so
Okay.
you can contact the state and see who's on the committee. Since we don't run it,
Well, I'm not sure if your
The committee.
question
My
was.
you said that you're really looking at a lot of the sources for how you're, the information that you're getting and stuff like that.
The ones the reliable sources that we
Right,
look at?
right.
Yeah, we can,
Yeah.
that could be something that you guys look at for future committee.
Okay, yeah,
meetings.
that's just me, just being.
And again, I think if you go to MSDE and you go to the search box and type health validation committee, you should be able to bring up some information and about old minutes and things like that.
Are you asking what we use in our county or what the state uses?
No, I was asking about what she's looking at with the validation committee for the sources for the state framework.
Oh, do you mean like when we were looking at the data review, when we were reviewing those, we looked at the youth risk behavior survey and we looked at school health profiles.
Okay, I thought you said you were looking at, or your sources, you know, and.
Well,
and
you're mixing up two
factual and
questions.
up-to-date.
Yeah, you'd ask how that relates to health education, and I gave you examples from our curriculum with students accessing valid information. That wasn't part of the validation committee, that was another question that you'd asked.
We're all confused, so I'll just let it go.
Because the validation committee really hasn't spent any time on family life.
No.
They haven't spent
Not
any
yet.
time, not yet.
Not yet, I know.
Right,
No, I
and that's what
understand
we're saying, you know, like, when she was given the information about what happened, that's what it was, unfortunately, or fortunately, whatever. They haven't spoke about family life at all yet, because it was just our first meeting. or
Right,
their
no, I
first meeting.
understand that, I understand that.
So
I
really,
just-
we're
you
kind
have
of
that book you said to look
going
at.
for them on guidance. Yeah, well,
That book is the state
that's the state
framework
framework.
that you can get online.
You can get that online too.
Yeah, this isn't
Yep.
the book I have to do homework on. The book I have to
Yeah.
do homework on is much thicker.
Right, I
Yeah, but yeah, that's available on OSD's website as well.
If I wrote down, Chris, that you said you were looking for valid sources that were science-based to cover when you're talking about things like body, protective factors and things like that.
Right,
Is
But
that what you're
that's within our
referring to?
curriculum. You asked about our local curriculum.
Okay, I wasn't asking about our local curriculum, I was asking about like the more of the, but it's fine, so.
And if you have questions, you can always contact the supervisor at the state, what's his name?
Jason.
Jason, so you can contact Jason, because really, they're not our committees, again, we're part of, you know, and so, just like we, you know, don't represent individually our committee, she doesn't represent their committee, so it would be him who, I guess, is the, committee chair or oversees.
No,
he
we
is-
have,
he's not
there's
actually
another
the chair.
representative
Okay,
that's the
so,
community.
so they can put you in touch with that individual.
Yeah, it's like he's not the chair of the PE one either. There's a chairperson from, I think, Baltimore City.
Yeah, this one is from Hartford County.
Yeah.
The other thing that didn't make it on the agenda that we wanted to talk about was, just like last year, we had, the secondary, teachers come in and do some professional learning over the summer. We had elementary this year come in, and do a little bit of training. And so Chris, do you wanna just give us an update on how that went, with your training with your elementary teachers?
With the elementary teachers this summer, we just went really through all of the new lessons because in the past, family life for elementary school really looked like 4th and 5th grade puberty. And as you know, there were a lot of changes. So we went through all of the different lessons. We went through all of the different resources. They previewed the movies that they'd gotten some teacher feedback on that prior, but then you all had approved the new 4th grade puberty videos. So we previewed those, talked about those lessons. I talked about, what else do you think you need for support within that, and then we talked about where it is now housed because we had a lot of changes within our county that would move our curriculum. So it moved from one site to another. So we went through to make sure that they could access that family life portion of the curriculum and knew how to do that. So they came in for not as long as what middle and high school came in. We spoke for about 2.5 hours. On the different things, and they gave some great suggestions for some other items that they might, need or want for support. And everybody's kind of rolling out with things, but we really wanted to make sure that they understood the process too of contacting the parents the 3 times. And then once they contact and they get a parent that has given them information, they have to report that to the office staff who then can change it within the system because the teacher does not have the ability to change those. So we went through a lot of procedural things too for this because it was such a big change for them. And then something that I would like to introduce too is that on October the 3rd, the Health 2 and 3 teachers are coming in and they're going to get a special session on a sensitive topic that lies outside of family life, but it is kind of related, which is human trafficking. So I'm looking forward to that piece, and they're also getting those Health 2 and 3 teachers training on impact teen driver and on Stop the Bleed. So once again, you know, we don't just teach family life and human sexuality. The curriculum has a lot of things for safety and violence prevention, as well as some life-saving things that we do.
Who's your resource for the human trafficking section?
We are using Care Healing Center.
Is that formerly Red Crisis?
Yes.
So they have background in trafficking?
They just received an award for their presentations with human trafficking. So we're talking about labor trafficking as well as sex trafficking. But those indicators lie within safety and violence prevention.
Chris, I was just wondering, for any of you, it looks like the initial number you're coming in for that's like kind of almost 50.
I'm sorry, I can't hear
the
you.
initial numbers for the percentages for the CCPS versus MSD was kind of like 50-50. When we discussed that earlier, didn't know exactly what it was going to look like once because we knew what the numbers were. Have you guys figured out yet like how that's going to look like in the classroom, like?
We talked, that's a lot of what we talked about that day too. Thank you for bringing that up. We talked about, you know, how could this, you know, look at your school? Because some of our health schools have 2 health teachers, so it gets a little bit easier to manage. And then we talked about other people in a special area that they could bring in for some of those opt-out students, or maybe their, you know, phys ed teacher who's also certified in health could teach that. So each school's model is going to look a little bit different, if that makes sense. Because they have to do what's going to work for them. I know I'm going to go in and help one of our schools that has just 1 health teacher there. They're doing a puberty day on, well, not puberty day, family life day on February 14th.
Used
You
to
know,
be called
Valentine's
puberty.
Day.
That's what we used to call it at the elementary level.
Yeah. So it is going to look different at every school. The first thought by a lot of principals were like, oh, we'll just do it in one day. But if you think about it, our teachers, you know, if they're teaching straight through the day, every single class or mod, they won't have time to take a biological break, and they won't have time to eat lunch, which is not, you know, humanly possible. And so that some of our schools are going to break it up and do it a little bit over a month, different grade levels. So that will be communicated to families on a school-to-school basis.
And each school, as the principal, you're the instructional leader, so you have the autonomy to set it up. Like at Mechanicsville, I always did it the day before, when it was only 4th and 5th grade, because I actually taught the boys, because we didn't have a male teacher at Mechanicsville at the time, so I actually taught the boys, and our health teacher was a female, she taught the girls. And what we did was, we did it the Friday before, like, what's that, Memorial Day, in May, because it was a perfect segue into, like, you know, you taught it, and then if they had questions, they had time, a little bit extra time to go talk to their parents. And that's what we always shared in the letter, the preview of the preview day. So, you know, each school did, some do it in January, some do it, you know, different times of the year. Usually, most elementary, they do it in spring, sometime further into the spring. It's never done early on, but the school has the autonomy to structure it the way they want, and those parents will be notified, you know, when it takes place. Usually they're notified, and they have a preview day or night.
Can we hear from our teachers how it's working? First, will you stop at elementary?
Yeah, we aren't, because we weren't following our actual guidelines. We were allowed to have one on last year because we were actually writing the curriculum, but at this point we only have 1 teacher, so.
Last year we had, Chris came in and helped because we were at Blair's Mill, because we only had 1, I think, permanent sub, and then we were missing 4. And so, Chris did, mine and Felicia's, days. And, this year, I think we have 5 substitutes, so far I've heard that we'll have our subs do it this year.
I actually enjoyed going in.
Yeah, I know you did.
It's kind of fun working with the students again.
It's not on the agenda, but I wanted to bring it, I thought it was in the notes from the very last meeting, that we would discuss possibly maybe an alternative option for that, in case it got difficult at high school, because we realized last year how difficult that was when you were tied up with other things, and a lot of teachers out, and sick and stuff, and just around the holidays, and whatever. We talked about possibly throwing out the idea of doing an asynchronous lesson, sort of like when go to graduation, and then the kids don't have school, but they're doing an asynchronous day that day. So kind of the same setup with the teachers in the room, you don't need another adult, it's just, you push out in Schoology the lesson for the kids signed up for, and then the kids have access to you, no matter, you know, what you're teaching, and at the high school level, so this is the idea, was the suggestion.
We talked on, I thought about in the beginning, since this is a 2-year term, should minutes from the last meeting be incorporated for approval into this meeting before we start? And maybe pick it up next time?
Prior to.
It was back in April.
They were sent
They
out
were
after
sent out
the
back
last
in
meeting.
April. Yeah.
So that I don't.
Or it might have been May or June when they were sent out, but it was for the April meeting.
Right.
Yeah, it was mentioned at the end.
Yeah, I do remember that. I think that model would work at the high school level. That model would not be something for elementary or middle, but that would also be something that this group would have to, you know, decide on. It would become problematic last year almost because we had a snow day on the last couple days of the semester, and that's when this
And
lesson
because
is
it's
going to
always
happen.
held until the last 2 weeks of the class, if you get into some weather, then you don't have it, you know, so.
And
that
we
would
were
be
called, like this, we had some parents concerned that their students did not receive the MSDE form, or they didn't think that they were gonna receive it. And they really had to make sure that they were careful with their days and got that in. So that would have been an example of how that could have been useful in a snow type situation. Or a teacher sick, like you had mentioned last
And I
year.
was like, oh my gosh, like a week last year, and if it hadn't been for some of the supplemental stuff I had already in hand, I don't know if I had much more left.
So Ms. Henkow, could that be something that we bring on for future topics, or?
Everybody wants to talk about that, I think that's a great idea.
Okay, so that would be something we would suggest when we create the agenda.
Okay.
Chris, I have a question for you. On that human trafficking that you're teaching the teachers on the 3rd?
And once again, that's not in family life.
No,
That is
no.
in safety and violence prevention.
Correct. Is that something that's gonna be during the school day? Is that something?
Now, all the health teachers are pulled, yes.
Oh, they're pulled, okay. I kinda wanted.
You wanna come?
But I'll talk to you instead, so.
Okay. Talk to your, maybe if you could talk to your supervisor, they could get you coverage to come, you're welcome to come.
Okay.
Is it all day?
What's that?
Is it all day?
Is it all day yet?
Not.
Well, no, I mean, not,
Let's.
yeah, let's
That's
decide.
exactly, that's a sidebar, so
Yeah,
let's
side-
make sure we keep
sidebar.
it, yes. So we discussed, again, the update, from, Chris on, the committee that she's on at the state. We talked about elementary. Is there any other questions? And, you know, probably should be
That's
doing
okay.
this, right?
I know, we probably should move on to the video since it's getting late.
Okay,
Are we
there-
planning on watching the whole video?
No, because we
Okay,
sent it
I know
down.
you had said you wanted to, okay, so does anybody have?
So
any-
I think there's a question though.
Okay, great.
Just as procedurally, will we be approving the minutes from the end of last year at this meeting, or will we post the next meeting? I mean, typically, we would need to approve them.
Correct, and I had the minutes and they were sent out. Does everyone have or remember minutes, or that's what I'm thinking, would we like to, if we could send them out, again, Ms. Council, if you can get those and send them out to the committee, then what we could do is at our, November meeting, we'll actually, approve the minutes from today as well as the minutes in April 18th.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for bringing that.
Okay, so are you finished with your updates from the state committee, and wasn't anything else before we move on to the puberty video? All good? Okay, so I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, we had talked about the fact that we have always had the boys and girls separate in the puberty video, and this video puts them together, which hasn't been done before. Is that correct for 6th grade?
For 6th grade, traditionally, the model has been the boys and girls are done separately.
Okay.
We don't have to talk about that with this, we just wanna see this video. In the past, I pulled the old ones that we have. It becomes problematic when they're DVDs that are very, very old and they can't be replaced. This one is from Always, and it is a link that I have downloaded, and we can use that. It shows both boy and girl bodies that are growing and changing, going through puberty. So it could be approached in two different ways. First of all, figuring out, is this the video we would want our sixth graders to see? So it's sixth grade. And secondly, do we want them to do it as they've done in the past, which are the boys and the girls separately, or do we want them to do it together? The things about this video that you'll see is that both male and female anatomy changes are addressed in about the same amount of time. For those of you who were on the committee last year, when you saw the fourth grade videos that we approved, it is pretty much that same video, but they're in fourth grade, they only see for what their biological body is going through. And here they would see both. Does that make sense? So they've kind of taken both of them and then put them together. And it's a co-ed version. So then we could decide, do we want to keep the model that we've had in the past, which is having them separate, or do we want them to do it together? So that's just something that we can decide. So two different things. Number one, is this an acceptable video that represents puberty, and we could use, and then together or separate? Does that make sense?
I just have a question because it's my first meeting. So would this video be proposed for kids who are in both groups that are CCPS and them? Okay, same video.
Yeah.
I have a bunch of questions.
And
but
another-
I don't wanna go first.
I was gonna say-
Another question, Chris, is, prior to this video coming out, when did, the boys and girls started meeting together and helping in seventh grade, correct?
Correct.
So then they started learning about each other's bodies at that age, correct?
Yeah, each
So this is a
puberty
video
film
prior
has
to
like a
that.
little snippet in fourth grade
Okay.
about the male anatomy or the female anatomy, the opposite.
Okay.
And that follows through with each of them, if that makes sense. And then seventh grade, they're put together for
To
that.
see both
Yes.
bodies.
I just think, in this day and age, it's important for them to acknowledge in sixth grade that everybody's bodies are growing and changing and going through puberty. And it's important to have that knowledge about both male and female anatomy.
The one procedural comment that I want to make, remember that we vote on it, but then it has to go to the board in May or June to get final
Just a
approval. So this would
recommendation
not
from the committee.
start until next year if
Yes.
it's approved by both our committee and the board.
Can you explain what they're doing now in sixth grade? Do they watch a video now?
They
How
do.
much
They
detail
have
does
about
it
a
go into?
They have about a 16-minute video.
Okay.
So they have a boy, one, and a girl, and they just see the one right now. And then they also have a slide deck that they go through. And at the very end of the slide deck, let's say if they saw the boy's video, they would have information about the boy's body growing and changing. At the very end, there is a slide or two about the opposite gender, if that makes sense. And that follows the same suit. And then they have a hygiene lesson, and then they have the gender lesson. So in sixth grade, it is pretty much 3 lessons that they have in family life.
Okay, so in sixth grade now, the boys would watch the video for the boys, and they would have 1 or 2 slides kind of touching on what the girls are going through.
Correct.
And that would be it, where if we go with this video, they would be getting 12 minutes on the period and stuff, which they
Not
could-
12 minutes all in a period. Have you viewed the video
Well, I did
yet?
watch the video. It was a long time on girl stuff. So they would be getting a lot more than what they've traditionally gotten in the past on the girls. Okay, do they usually get that much information in seventh grade now?
They would get full information.
I'm just trying to, it's very hard to say, yeah, we should do this when I don't know what they're doing currently and how much of a change it is from what we've done traditionally in the past.
The hardest thing right now is finding something. A lot of the things that I found as resources, they have a streaming cost to them, if that makes sense. So every stream, every view that you take, they're charging you as a system. So, you start adding that up, it becomes astronomical. We are teaching puberty, which is, pretty basic information. We can continue to look for other resources if you all decide that you don't like this video. But once again, then this one with the link is convenient too for parents to preview, for parents to talk about, things with their students. So we can continue to look, but sometimes, there just isn't a blockbuster topic on this.
And is that what is implementing this change to this video is the
Well, we
current,
didn't-
the
excuse
current,
me?
the current, format we have is just getting old and cumbersome?
Well, it's 2007.
But it's a DVD, right?
It is a DVD.
Can't buy them.
No.
Some schools only have DVD players.
A lot of people don't have DVD.
None of
players
our
anymore.
computers have
Yeah,
DVD.
computers we get,
Or
but they come with
CDs,
DVD
right?
players.
So, I would echo your sentiments too, because it seemed to me, I was trying to put myself in my son's shoes in 6th grade, and it seemed like a lot of, female information that.
Overload?
Yes, that he probably wouldn't want to know about. I don't think he needs to know in 6th grade, but, it just seemed long. It seemed longer than the usual video to me, but I didn't time it, but it just like.
I thought it was great. I thought, watching it, and my 8th grader came in during the period part, and so he kind of laughed a little bit. And he's in 8th grade, he's a boy, but so I do think there's gonna be a lot of obviously giggling and stuff. I do think that having them separated would make the girls, not so much the boys, make the girls feel a little bit more comfortable, because in 6th grade, I don't know, feel like we've all obviously been there, and I think that would be more to comfort them, whereas the boys, there's no laughing or, that's my opinion. But I thought it was great, so. Sorry, you know me and my
Go ahead.
procedural
No, that's
questions.
fine.
So I appreciate your comment. I'm wondering though, I was looking at the responsibilities of the board, and I don't believe it is our responsibility to give recommendations about how the material is presented, right? So we're recommending the actual material or the content of that, but not whether or not boys and girls are split up or anything like that. Is that understanding correct?
It is, but we would actually ask feedback from the committee for that, because it's a little different of what we would normally do in a classroom. Like normally a classroom is all together no matter what.
Sure.
And we've always done it separately, so, we're really asking for the feedback that we can then take it to the board and say this is what our committee, thought of. In all reality, the committee is for instructional materials, not how it's taught or,
Right.
Exactly. So, but we have always taken questions, and considerations to our committee. Same with curriculum committee is the same way. And when we're looking at social studies or we're looking at something, we always look at voting on the materials, but we may get feedback on, is this something like, we were looking at, the PE, it's unified PE and how it's taught and also, then after we take the feedback, we then develop our own.
And Steve, I guess the paragraph, I'm sorry if you're not sure.
It's that's
You're
a
absolutely right. It
little
would be
bit
the materials,
different than
yes.
what it says here, so I just wanna be really
Yes.
clear that.
So it would be the material, so it's actually, do we use that or not? But
Right.
we're then asking this committee, what are your thoughts after reviewing this? What it
Okay.
be?
Okay. And then really briefly, if I may, I did appreciate the video, but I think your point about it being shareable to families so that then folks can sit together with their children and have those conversations, that to me is really powerful. And that's not something that's offered by the current materials, so I think that's something we need to make sure. Whatever material that we're recommending, I think we should try to make sure that's an option.
Right, and when I looked into a couple of the other ones where you could pay per download, if you're thinking about that, then how are parents going to preview
Right.
that?
Right.
I actually felt like I was watching a video I already watched.
Well,
Fourth
you
grade
were.
videos start out the exact
It was
same
the
way.
same kid.
Well, that's what I said, it was the same
It was the
kids,
same
it was the
kid.
same
Just
video.
a little bit more in depth.
It's just, it did
They
go
just-
in more in depth, like I
Well,
almost
they just
wanna
put them
rewatch.
together, they just put the.
So if we wanted to, we could just do the same videos again, boy, girl, separate, in 6th grade.
No, because I think the change in this would be the fact that they're seeing the full length of each. Do you know what I mean? You wouldn't wanna show them the same video again that they've seen in 4th grade, just on their body.
Unless you don't want them to see the full length girl, if you're a boy, and boy if you're a girl.
The video from 4th grade, does it go into more detail on, like, so, the boy video in 4th grade, is it longer in this one? Isn't it has
This
more?
one's a total of 26 minutes, and the other two separately were 14 and 16. So it's about
Okay,
the
about
same
Okay,
content.
I thought there was a little bit more, and
I
I don't know
don't-
why from the video, but it may
Yeah,
have just.
they're very, very similar. There might be a slight change, but it's like they took the two cuts and they just morphed them together.
So the big change we're seeing here is that instead of getting 2 little slides for girls and boys to see of the opposite sex, they're now getting a 12-minute video of the opposite sex. That's the question, do we want to do that or not?
Well, I think we need to have everybody preview the video and then come back and talk about it, because I don't think did everybody get to preview the video?
If you show of hands, who watched the video?
Okay.
I couldn't be YouTube or
I'm not saying to vote on it now, I'm just trying to clarify, because like I said, it's hard to make a decision, we don't know what we used to do, I just wanna make sure I understand what we've been doing in the past, and what the change is to the new video and everything, so,
I'm just gonna, like, when I was going back to, Amanda was saying, I understand where she was coming from. I think that we just give recommendations to the board, so for us to, I think they would want the information being a representation of the county, so they could have that informed decision. Whether they take the information, what they do with it, is up to them, but having the information, I don't think is harmful for them to know that that's.
also, it's difficult for us to vote on the video not knowing if it's going to be together or separate, that does factor into our decision, so.
Well, I think we need to look at, is the instruction materials worth, again, when we look at instruction materials, you know, you look at it for the worth of the information. Is the information worth what is being shown? Is it accurate? Do you feel that it's comfortable for whoever's viewing it to see it? You know, when we look at instructional materials, there's a lot out there. We wanna make sure, first of all, that it's representative of facts. If it's social studies, science, it doesn't matter who's viewing it. If it's 9th grade material, it's 9th grade material. Do you feel that this is worthy of the facts? And then we can then have the conversation of, how does this committee feel about, we've always had them separated. We're not saying that we're putting them together, but what are your thoughts individually? Because we would like to hear everyone collectively just kind of give us feedback. So I think that it's 2 separate entities. First of all, when you're looking at the video, is it accurate? Is it professionally done? Is it accessible? Is it something that you would feel would be worthwhile using? And then we want feedback on, we've always had our students separate. We all have children. I have 2 that are seniors, one that's in 2nd year of college, for pre-vet. And so is it something that you would want your children to, you know, if you're thinking back to 6th grade, to view together? Would they be, you know, would it be devastating for a girl to see that if there's a boy sitting next to them? Would the boys laugh too much? Those are the kind of things that we want. We want accurate feedback, not coming in hauling and going back and forth. We need to really have good decisions so that we can take the information back to our other committees, our teacher committees and all, to use, to decide what, you know, how it's being used.
Yeah, so I mean, I think the video, seems very factual. I think the video's fine. I think the accessibility portion is very important to it. And I mean, I have no problem with, honestly, my 6th grade daughter watching that. I do believe that watching the boys in the room might, I think especially for girls would be more of an issue than boys. But so that's where my stance. I'm fine with the video. I think it's factually correct. I think it's accessible. I think it meets all those. I think whether they sit in the same room with boys is probably worth talking about.
I'm not gonna speak for the group, but I have 4 girls, and I know for a fact, if you put any of them, but as they get to 6th grade, in the room, and they have to watch that video with boys around, your 8th grade son giggled, you deduct 2 years from their age of maturity. That's a huge jump, by the way, in maturity level. They will be very uncomfortable to have to sit there and listen to that. So I think the video is great, very educational, very factual. I think how and who they watch it with is crucial for someone who has little girls, you know. to protect them.
What I would recommend is, because ultimately we're trying to get to a recommendation that we want to bring forward to the board. I would break this up into 2 votes, and, because they kind of go hand in hand, and understanding too that I know that we don't technically have oversight of the way the lessons are delivered. We do appreciate the feedback being heard, and being able to communicate that to the board. So what I would say is we have a vote to say, like, do we want to have combined room or room
Well,
or separate?
we'll get feedback, but we
Get
don't
feedback?
vote on
Okay.
that, because it's not,
Alright.
we will vote on the, and I think that as we're looking at it, a lot of our teachers also had, some concern that, being together, so we also gotta take that in mind, do they feel comfortable teaching? So it's really about, you know what I mean? So I think there's, it's parents, it's looking at, and we're not wedded to any version. It doesn't, we're just trying to figure out what is the best for our students.
And I know concern in the past has come up about like non-binary children and different things like that, but again, you stated last year, and I just reaffirm that the parent gets to opt in which group they go with. Is that true in this case? So then either way, even if they're separate,
Well, I
that
think
child
usually
is
it's a
protected.
joint decision between, the parent, the child.
And the staff. Yeah. So looking out for all children and making sure we're protecting everyone, that is always still a standard, right? So I state that because sometimes that can be a concern in making sure we're inclusive and looking out for all individual children. I just,
So you're not looking for a vote today, correct?
I think that
Until
what we
May.
do is, I think we have good conversations, because sometimes we rush our votes, at least I felt so in the past. And if you really wanna look at, when we're looking at 40, 50, 60 books in curriculum council, it's really giving you time, we preview, we discuss, we come back, and then we vote. So I think what we do is we take our discussion, what we had tonight, we got time, we can look at it, it's not that, we wouldn't put it out there if we voted tonight, we wouldn't use it this year anyway. So I think that we take our time, we think about it, go back and review it again based on our conversation and the questions that were posed, and then we'll come back and vote, is it a material that we really want? And then we can further also our conversation a little bit more on, is it something that you would, would again, after our discussion, would want a separate or combined class? And again, it does not matter to us. It's not like we're wanting to change just to change. We want to make sure that it's what's best, as you said, what's best for our students. And so, knowing your own children, taking those recommendations, and back, and then also talking to our teachers, then it'll give us a good sense of where we go from here.
So when we send the minutes out tonight, could we just like re-include the link that we already watched together, and keep it all together? And then also maybe put the 4th grade video links in there just for clarification as you think of, look at the comparison between the two.
Oh, yeah, the 4th grade links, not the 4th grade video that we're currently using. Or
the
the
ones
old,
we had
this
watched
one, you want
last
the video from
year.
last year, okay,
Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah, that'd be good.
See the differences.
And it still counts in our, so everything that we had, you can still get to in the drive that we had it last year, but we'll
Yeah,
still put
that's,
those links.
it would just be helpful, it's right there.
It is, the
For our
only
new members,
concern
too.
that I ever
Yeah.
have in pulling things off YouTube is I don't know if they change them. Do you know what I mean? So when I download that last year, I know that that's what we approved last year.
Yeah.
I don't know that link that you see on YouTube has not been altered in any way, shape,
We'll
or
let you
form.
know.
Excuse me?
We'll let you know.
So that's just my concern.
But if you're using it.
We're using our downloaded.
We're using the downloaded version,
Okay.
yeah.
So to that point then, let's say we do use this video and want parents to preview it. Would they have to go to the link that you downloaded, or would you?
I can do what I did with the 4th and 5th grade videos, and actually now that you say that, it's on Final Site, so I can share the downloaded ones that we approved last year as a committee. Because I put those on Final Site, which is the front-facing place that we can put things for parents. So I do have those links. So I forgot that I did that.
It just helps put it in context, especially for the new members.
Can we also download this one as well and put it on Final Site, and so all 3 of them?
I can, yes, I just need to work with Ryan.
Yeah,
because
exactly, yeah.
It's a little trickier
Yeah.
than what,
Yeah.
just clicking one button.
Right,
It's a
exactly, so
little-
we'll try to do that for the committee, is have all three of the links.
That'd be
When
great.
it's sent out, when the sync house sends it in the next
Just
agenda
for,
out, all that.
just
will
for
be-
review.
I would also like to request if you could send, like, I know you said the slides that the boys see about the girls and the girls see about the boys, are they just like 2 slides, like a PowerPoint, or was it part of the
Well,
video?
it's part of the slide deck that they use within the classroom, so it's just a slide deck that we created. Like
I don't know what a slide deck is.
Like a
Presentation.
PowerPoint, okay, that's what it's
Just a
PowerPoint. So could
PowerPoint.
you send us the slides that each see, so I can just see, like, what were the boys getting, what were the girls getting about the opposite sex? And just kind of know,
I don't see a problem with that.
Okay.
So can, oh, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I guess I'm just wondering, as I think through it, is the recommendation with this new video that they do share that?
It's not gonna be the same slide deck, I guess.
No,
that's
no,
just-
sorry, I'm not communicating clearly. I'm wondering where this change from separate classrooms to combined classroom came from. It was kind of along with this new recommended video, or if that's a separate, because I would assume that if 6th graders have always been separate, that they would remain separate, they would just watch the new video, right? And that would be kind of the default. So, which I'm totally fine with. I'm just wondering why that's even a conversation.
I think we brought it up in April of last year.
Where
because
that
seventh-
recommendation-
It came from us, actually,
Okay.
7th and 8th grade are combined, so we said, would it be something, I think we talked about it in April, would it be something that we would want to have 6th, 7th, and 8th
I see.
combined? But
Okay.
again, the information's still valid, combined
Right.
or separate, so
Sure.
to us, like I said, it really isn't a.
Yeah, I'm just
It
wondering if
doesn't
it's
matter.
worthwhile even having that
That's what-
conversation if the default for 6th grade has always been separate.
Yeah, and I don't even know where that started.
Yeah.
Like, when did,
That seems,
it's
Just
separate.
seems to create chaos.
and it's not related to curriculum materials, so.
That's fine. So then we'll just strike that, we'll keep it separate, and we'll just look at the video.
Only because, I mean, even just thinking of these kids, like 6th grade's a big jump, going from 5th to 6th, whatever across the board, so like keeping with protocol and standard and that, it's just
Sure.
easy for everyone. So
Yeah, it seems like a really big change.
it's a lot
Yeah.
to change.
Yeah. So then we'll send the videos, the 4th grade, just so everyone has it, the fourth grade boys and girls, and the new one as a link. And then we'll send the slides, the couple slides out.
Well, they would be sent as like an attachment.
Yeah, like
They
as an
wouldn't have
attachment,
links.
exactly, that's what I mean, like as an attachment.
Just a couple JPEGs. Screenshots.
Exactly, yep.
There's no animations in there.
No,
so
yeah,
it
no,
should
that's
take
what I'm
up a
saying,
whole
yeah,
lot.
yeah.
Wonderful.
Instead of sending out the PowerPoint
Thank you.
presentation,
Yep.
just a couple
Thanks for helping us
screenshots.
understand that.
No, that's good.
Just give me a little time to do that too.
Oh, yeah.
I have to definitely meet with Ryan.
Well, we have until November 24th now.
Okay, so are we go to the video, we'll table it, we'll talk about it next time, maybe take a vote, if everybody feels comfortable? Okay, and future topics? I don't know where that would come from, if that would come from us, or if you guys have things that you wanna talk about in the future?
Usually come from all of us, like Kelly had one.
As I was saying, I think Kelly brought up one that we could discuss.
Right.
About the asynchronous option.
Could you explain what an asynchronous day is, please, to me?
So, do you know how like, we have Schoology, right, is our platform?
Yes.
Okay, so the kids, when they're in the classroom, they pull up Schoology and it has resources, like maybe a PowerPoint, could have a video link, it could have a worksheet on there, and they download it and they work on it like that. So asynchronous just means that there's not really direct instruction. There's just, you say, okay, this, this one, because it would be two, like you'd have possibly 3 or 4 kids doing this lesson and the rest of the class doing this lesson, you just say, okay, well, today's lesson, open up Schoology and start. And you just really kind of be the adult in the room for questions and not really doing direct instruction. Is that the best way to put it?
Non-directed.
Non-direct.
So is the teacher available for a certain class time, because the kids would be, they usually do this for.
Teacher, right, like me, the health teacher,
Yeah.
would be for both kids, whether they're taking CCPS or the MSC, doesn't matter which one. I would be there for both of them, and they'd ask me questions.
Okay. But don't they do the asynchronous day for snow days also, or is that?
We haven't started that yet. We never
Okay,
actually.
okay,
But-
all right.
We're not doing this right now.
All right,
That's-
maybe a
that's
future
done from
topic.
home. That's done from
Yeah,
home.
that's okay,
There's
so.
no teacher in the room.
Got
This
it.
one would be an asynchronous teacher in the room.
Okay,
The curriculum
Thank
for
you.
fourth and sixth grade, is that asynchronous or teacher-led?
Everything's teacher-led right
This
now.
was only discussed for
This-
high school last year, nothing more.
yeah. I did not know that.
I have a quick question about the asynchronous. So you would have MSDE kids in there with the CCPS kids on?
Well, we're not discussing that right now.
Okay.
That's something that we'll know, we're just looking at future
I
topics.
just wanted to know what the asynchronous day was. I was a little confused on that.
I just have concern with them.
Yeah, no, I totally agree, but I'm just trying to, with our 7 minutes, to get through future topics, and then we can talk about that and discuss that.
Yeah.
So that's a future topic, and then, we'll vote on the video, obviously, it's a future topic. And then, we said maybe teacher feedback, right, would be another one that we'd start to review, once we start to get that feedback in.
And final percentages, if we could have those too, if it's final.
Nothing is final, but
Nothing
there
is
may,
anything final till the day they teach it.
That's
Okay,
school teachers.
well, that'll be pretty close.
Because you could change the morning of the lesson if you really wanted to.
Yeah.
So, yep, updated percentages. Other future topics?
Okay, well, I guess you can email me if you think of anything, and I guess we can see if we can add it to the agenda.
So how do we close out?
Motion to adjourn. Second.
Presentation from the health department.
Those in favor?
Aye.
So, so you didn't talk to, you and Phil, this kind there's that. And then like some other things that we'll talk about.
Oh,